Hello, and welcome to this webinar on the journey to the seal of biliteracy. My name is Dr. Veronica Trapani. I'm the Associate Director for Content, World Languages, and International Education at the Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction. I'd like to begin this webinar with a tribal land acknowledgement. I'd like to acknowledge the Indigenous people who have stewarded this land since time immemorial and who still inhabit the area today. The Salish-speaking people of the Confederated Tribes of the Chehalis Reservation, the people of the Sands. I reflect on the work necessary on my part to break down the barriers created by an educational system built on a settler colonial mindset. My work with the Seal of Biliteracy and competency-based world language credits focuses on clearing the pathways for tribal, native, and indigenous students to earn credit and recognition for their language skills, while acknowledging that language is the center of culture. Thank you. So this all began with Galina and Terry Bergerson. And it was a simple question from Dr. Michelle Ancioaogi's daughter's extracurricular Russian teacher to the state superintendent in 1997. Why can't my students earn graduation credits for Russian? Why shouldn't students be recognized for languages they know, even if those languages aren't taught in our public schools? So as we go through our webinar today, I'll be keeping a little bit of a journey, of a timeline for you. So again, our initial inquiry, 1997, why can't my students earn credits for Russian? 10 years later, Michelle went to work at OSPI. The State Board of Education was located in the same building. The policy analyst there, Dr. Kathy Taylor, remembered Michelle from a project they had both been on in 1999 called the Admissions Standards Action Committee. The intent of that project was to pilot using portfolio assessments for college admissions. They were both part of the World Languages Pilot Group. Carl Falsgraf, the founding director of Castles, was also working on that project. The project was a good idea, but also a failure. It was simply too voluminous to collect portfolios of evidence and then try to transport them to language teachers untrained in assessment to evaluate for college admissions. But now, almost 10 years later, the State Board of Education had a grant from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation to pilot competency-based credits for high school. Kathy wondered whether that was something they could do for world languages. As it happened, they had begun piloting a new computer-based language assessment in their dual language immersion programs in Seattle. It was called STAMP, the Standards-Based Measurement of Proficiency, and it was being developed at Castles at the University of Oregon. They wondered if that might be a way for students to demonstrate their language proficiency and earn competency-based credits over the next year. So here we go, 1997 to around 2008. This led to the creation of the World Language Advisory Group. So the State Board of Education convened this World Language Advisory Group, and they wanted to discuss the pros and cons. How can it be done? How does it work? They also wanted to review the policies of 3 states who were already doing this. That included New Jersey, Connecticut, and Utah. And finally, they also wanted to review the results of college and high school students who piloted standardized world language proficiency assessments. This led to the development of a state policy and procedure to report competency-based credit testing. Then the State Board of Ed endorsed a Washington State school director's sample policy and a sample procedure for awarding competency-based credits for world languages in 2010. And here we come to our competency-based credits, otherwise known as CBC. The goal of CBC is to help students with proficiency in a language other than English earn high school world language credits. Students must demonstrate proficiency in that language at a level comparable to what a student in a regular high school world language course might demonstrate, whether it is 1 or 4 credits, and a student, though, must take an assessment which determines language proficiency. And this does not matter what language, and it could be American Sign Language, tribal languages, or any number of languages, even those that do not have written systems. So when we started looking at CBC, the first step 1 was earning the credit. And so we created a list of approved providers, and then the assessment companies rated the students on kind of our 4 skills, right? Reading, writing, speaking, and listening. And then the students would earn between 1 and 4 credits. Languages without an alphabet or written alphabet and American Sign Language still counted. And 4 credits of competency-based credit were required to earn the seal of biliteracy. What was really great is there's no limit to the number of times a student may assess. So students may assess even at 8th grade or at the end of senior year. Step 2 was calculating the credits. So once the students' scores, proficiency scores were handed back to the districts, they were then supposed to award world language credit. So you can see here, intermediate mid was the designated 4 credits, and that is also the threshold for the seal of biliteracy. And you could see that 1 through 4. Third was the district needed to report it. And this is really important that registrars and or counselors, whoever was reporting the data, make sure to get those competency-based credits on the student's transcript. Competency-based credit stays with the student until graduation and even longer. As a side note, recently had an email from the state supervisor for languages in Hawaii, and a student had moved there from Washington with world language competency-based credits, and they were able to make sure that they still had those Spanish credits. So registrars should aim to get the world language credits onto the student's transcript within a month, but really no later than August 31st. And each district sets up its own local course title to reflect the fact that the credit is competency-based and not from a seat time course in their high school. So when OSPI was looking to get these proctored writing and oral language tests, they were also thinking about how do we evaluate less commonly tested languages like Somali or Marshallese or Oromo. And so they partnered with Castles and they created appropriate performance tasks and really proctored them. It was done originally through LinguaFolio online, and it took about 30 minutes. And then they were evaluated by language professionals in the less commonly tested languages, who were generally found, recruited, and trained by Monique Roske from M2 Language Consulting, LLC. So that gets us to 2010. We had our policy created for and procedure for competency-based credit testing. Next, we needed to have a pilot system. So we worked and they created the Washington World Language Assessment Days. These were launched in 2011, and they were an opportunity for high school students to complete nationally recognized language proficiency assessments at a reasonable price. Currently, well, at the time, Waffled held the agreements with the testing companies and helped manage payments. And then the State Board of Ed and OSPI provided certificates and letters to the students and their school counselors. So really, this was a collaboration between the State Board of Ed, OSPI, and Waffled for language testing and colleges and for districts to offer testing days for students. Some of those highlights of those first statewide testing from around 10 years ago. You can see these 5 different districts: Aberdeen, Bellingham, Burlington Edison, Acosta, and Seattle. And the number of, so we had, more than almost 350 students testing. Keep that number in mind. There were 2 assessments that were used then. STAMP, which we had discussed earlier, which was developed by Castles, is currently now offered through Avant Assessment. And it was looking to test reading, writing, speaking, and listening, and it was computer adapted. So how it found out the proficiency level was it became harder as the student did better and over time. The other assessment used were OPI, or the OPIC, which is the oral proficiency interview. It's one, the other can be computer-based, which was available in more than 80 languages, and in coordination with the WPT, the writing proficiency test. So here we are, you see we have 2011, having our World Language Assessment Days. Now, we also created the roadmap for World Language Credit Program. This was from 2012 to 2014 and was funded by a grant from Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation to the Roadmap Project ELL work group. And so there were 7 districts, and the goal was to create a system within each district and across districts to offer competency-based high school credits for world languages to English language learners, sometimes now called our multilingual learners, and heritage language students by providing opportunities for students to develop and or maintain literacy in their native or heritage languages, as well as in English, and to demonstrate that proficiency through nationally available language assessments. And I wanted to show just quickly here some of the original promotional materials. And as you can see, again, this was geared towards languages that didn't have an AP test yet, that didn't have a stamp assessment yet, really looking for heritage speakers. And here is the World Language Credit Program Honors Bilingual Immigrant Students video.
Spanish.
Amharic.
French.
Farsi.
Arabic.
Language is part of our heritage, and it is part of our roots, and it's part of our culture, and it's our everyday life. Giving value to that is always very important, and making students always feel welcome and always feel supported.
This is our background. Our language is kind of our representation of who we are. So it was very important for me to teach her Spanish at home. So we speak English here because we're in America, but we come from Mexico. So it's very important for us to know where we come from in our language.
The South King County region is extremely diverse. Just in this region alone, we have over 160 languages, and 40% of our incoming kindergartners are English language learners. The World Language Credit Program officially recognizes students who come into the schools with knowledge of another language. And for many of our kids, this is one of the first times that they've actually been able to get credit and be recognized for a skill that they've learned at home.
I never thought that Amharic would be a language that was known or that I would get credit for, let alone, people knowing of the language. So when I found out about it, I was like, I can't believe my language is being recognized and I get to take this test to get my credit.
Students have the opportunity to earn up to 4 credits. They take exams in reading, writing, and oral. Depending on how they perform, they can earn up to the 4 full credits that are part of their high school graduation credits. It allows them to take other classes that they need because they've already earned these other credits for their language.
It actually builds positive identity in our kids. It connects them deeper to their home language, to their heritage, to their culture, and it allows students to bring their whole selves to the classroom as opposed to leaving who they are at home outside of the classroom. So the World Language Credit Program started in 2 districts in our region, Seattle and Highline. This community impact project called the Roadmap Project is a community effort to raise achievement for our students and close the growing opportunity gap.
The 2 districts that started, Highline and Seattle, it's now expanded to 7 in the Roadmap, plus a number of other large districts around the state that have also embraced the opportunities.
Tukwila School District represents over 80 languages, which is pretty typical for the districts in our area. One of the things that's really fantastic about the program is that it doesn't matter what language you speak, so it offers everyone an opportunity to earn the credits, not just a specific few. All we had to do was recruit the students and make sure that they were there on testing day. From there, it was really easy.
The success of this program really was about collective impact. It was about everyone coming together. So they all embraced it. In fact, they all tested way more kids than we ever envisioned within the very first year, and even more the second year.
We've had over 1,000 students in our region test and get credit for knowledge of their home language. And potentially this opportunity would be open to the 120,000 students in our region.
When parents find out that we have this program that values their native language and that we're going to give their kids coaching and help them to earn credits toward high school graduation, they're thrilled.
I think it's great that they're bringing in more of the diversity to the schools about letting kids know that it's okay for them to be different and speak another language and actually get credited for it.
And now all the kids who graduate from this year on will have that seal of biliteracy on their diploma when they graduate with those world language credits.
The exam would allow you to get the seal of biliteracy, which is something that I absolutely would love to be able to get accepted into college and have me like as a unique candidate in their campus.
We're part of a global economy, so having kids be able to manifest those skills and have it recognized by the state is really a big deal.
I think it's great because now we're all able to really show our colors, where we come from, how we grew up, and that's through our language. We're able to connect with others as well, and it opens opportunities being able to speak another language and being recognized for that.
I felt honored because that's my language. I don't really use it that often. I just use it at home. At school, I'm afraid to use it. So to have this chance, it was like honoring my language, honoring my people, like not forgetting where we came from. So it was big deal. It was a big deal for me and for my family.
It's really exciting. It's innovative, it's different, and it's a way that we've been able to embrace the unique and diverse strengths that our many communities bring to our schools.
Anybody that has a language needs to develop it further and maintain it and be an asset. Those are the opportunities that will really make a difference in kids' lives and the future of the United States.
Aprendan español.
Appris le français. تعلم اللغة العربية.
فارسی رو یاد بگیر.
Aprende español.
And as you can tell, it went from 300 students to 1,400 students. And what's really exciting is that in this current year past year of 20 to 21, we had almost 4,000 students earning the seal of biliteracy and competency-based credits in over 83 languages. So it just keeps building. The way that originally we were able to kind of look at the impact of the roadmap was a report by Jason Greenberg Motamedi and Zafreen Jaffrey with Education Northwest. And really what they found was that, when you look at almost 100% of students earned at least one, and most students, 84%, earned 3 or more world language credits. Percentages broken down by language back then. Spanish was almost 60%, and you can see going all the way down and having a percentage of, all the way through Arabic. So what were the conclusions that the roadmap proficiency report showed us? There are 3 main ones. Number 1 is that students recognize the personal, cultural, and social value of multilingualism. It was a way for them to not only see it within themselves, but to celebrate their culture and their community. Finding number 2 is that world language credits gave students choices and the chance to graduate on time. All the students that they spoke with received at least 1 credit and were certain that the credits would help them in school. World language credits are elective credits that are, in most or only 2 credits are required for graduation. However, some students do need elective credits, or they need to have these world language credits and to be able to be necessary for eligibility for 4-year colleges in Washington. So receiving those world language credits meant that students did not have to take a world language or sometimes other elective credits. It fulfilled their requirements and gave those students more choices about the classes they could take. Their choices ranged from advanced courses in science and math to courses in other world languages and other electives that were, as students said, more enjoyable, interesting, and fun than the core courses they were required to take for graduation. And while many of the students who took the assessments and received world language credits told us that they were already on a path to graduation, others were worried that they would not graduate on time because of a credit deficiency. These students regarded the extra world language credits as instrumental to on-time graduation. And the third finding was receiving credits made students confident about being bilingual. Many bilingual students or multilingual students don't want to have other students know that they are multilingual. And this gave them a chance to not only, be acknowledged, but also confident in their language skills. It's really saying your language is a benefit, is a skill, and it's never been, and it's not a deficit. So we come to 2012 to 2014. And in 2014, something else happened, which was the creation and implementation and signed into law of the Seal of Biliteracy. And so here's a wonderful photo of Governor Jay Inslee signing the state seal of biliteracy into law. And through this, it created a much bigger demand for testing. So when we look at the seal of biliteracy here now, let's look at how do we earn the seal of biliteracy. Well, first of all, its purpose is to recognize high levels of language proficiency in both English and another language. The seal of biliteracy is on the transcript and is considered a value-added award. And currently, right now, the seal is only awarded to graduating high school seniors. And how do they do this? Graduating high school students must meet both of the following criteria. They must demonstrate proficiency in English by meeting the statewide minimum graduation requirements for ELA in their pathway. And yes, that means that students, no matter if they are in the career and technical education, military, or college/university prep pathways, are all able to earn the seal. And then they demonstrate proficiency in one or more world languages by taking one of the OSPI approved assessments and demonstrating at least intermediate mid across all 4 skills. Really quickly, let's look at the 5 steps to the seal. First one is very simple. Identify your students. Number 2, districts need to determine what assessments are needed. 3 is setting those test dates, publicizing them. Step 4 is recording and reporting results. And step 5, which might seem really obvious, but sometimes gets left off, is celebrating that success. Currently, we have a nice flow chart that is on the OSPI website that really can help districts try to find what students are eligible and who might qualify for the seal of biliteracy. And really, it's students that speak a language other than English at home, and students who are currently on and will earn 4 credits of world language through seat time. And you'll notice here, it's available for ASL in tribal languages through AP testing, IB testing, and even custom testing. Right now, this is the most current as of February 2022, assessments and providers. So you'll see that from 2 before, which was STAMP and the OPI, we've really expanded. And yeah, Washington State, while they're not many language specific at the moment, it's still really great to be able to see that there are so many options for our students depending on language need and their goals for whatever they do in their post-secondary life. Step 3 is just, again, deciding on test dates and publicizing them to students and families. And we really do encourage counselors and teachers to reach out to their students, provide information in multiple languages, offer opportunities for families to ask questions, hold information sessions, both maybe before school, after school, and maybe offer them in different ways, whether it's online or in person. And we really do also, for those teachers, want to stress that we should also be talking to our multilingual educators and our career technical ed educators. Step 4, this is now on the schools, but once the tests are done, sent in, they collect the results, they check the proficiency scores, and making sure that students get their competency-based credit if necessary. And if they earn up to the 4 credits that was shown earlier in the presentation, then they will be marked Seal of Biliteracy Proficient. And finally, it's really important to maintain accurate and complete data records. So really now is just step 5. By May or June, most of the graduating seniors who have been identified as on track to earn the seal really should be, talked to and made sure that they understand that they are still on the path. And there's some ideas that sometimes you can contact OSPI for the embossment of the seal for the students' diplomas. You can provide letters or certificates recognizing students, providing Seal of Biliteracy medallions for students to wear during graduation ceremonies, and recognizing seal recipients during honor ceremonies at school. And something that's really vital is inviting parents and families and community members to attend. Remember, especially for our our heritage language students, a lot of times they've taken, Hungarian 1, 2, 3, 4 already at home before they've ever stepped foot into a classroom. So it's really important to recognize and remember the community around them. So for our last couple minutes, let's just look at what's the future of the Washington State Seal of Biliteracy. Where do we go from here? So there's kind of really two ways that we can look. And the first one is connecting world language and the current graduation pathways. So we've been actively working to connect with tribes and making sure that, they understand tribal languages are absolutely available. And, what can we do to provide that for their students, for whether enrolled or not, and the expansion of tribal language programs within not only the state tribal education compact schools, but also the many districts that have Native and tribal students within them. We've been also working and reaching out to skill centers and CTE programs. What can our students do with translating and interpretation programs? Those codes are already there in the CTE pathway, so let's get our students earning them and really being able to see their language as a skill that they already have. What can we do with joining with other Washington government agencies? Things like the Department of Social and Health Services, Department of Children, Youth and Families, Department of Health. Where can our students and their language be needed and where can they go? We are also looking to connect with the military and other federal government usage by speaking with not only the education outreach within our branches, but also looking at the Washington National Guard. And finally, connecting with our community and technical colleges, making sure that there are programs that our multilingual students can use their skills. And so finally, the other side is advancing the seal with more dual level SEAL opportunities, similar to like AP IB or CI, earning dual credit for not only their high school, but also colleges. We also are looking at, and there will be soon the adoption of Spanish language arts standards so that our heritage Spanish speakers will also be able to study more in depthly their language. And finally, looking at creating a more neutral language, neutral L1 language in our SEAL guidance. So that way, perhaps, looking at Spanish as the L1 and English as the L2. So I want to thank you for joining me, and really the possibilities for the continuation of our SEAL are endless. And the only barriers are imaginations and maybe some of our laws. If you have information or would like to talk to me, here is my email and my phone number. And thank you so much for joining me. And I hope that you learned a little bit of something. Goodbye.